your point, I mean, the system is working, right? There was evidence that Letitia James may have committed some mortgage fraud that was looked into, and ultimately a jury of her peers decided that wasn't legitimate. So I think there was...
I'm glad the system is working against the person who's actively trying to destroy it. I mean, the beautiful part of America is that we have institutions and checks and balances that are separate from the president. You can see time and time again, Donald Trump is trying to bully other institutions under his wing. So we can look at Jerome Powell at the Federal Reserve. If you look at countries where the president is able to control monetary policy, these are some of the worst countries in the world, right? You do not want the president controlling monetary policy. This has happened in countries like Venezuela. Let's take this over to the DOJ. You do not want the president directing the DOJ to prosecute people, to indict people, and that is exactly what we saw. We just watched a clip of Pam Bondi saying, there will never be an enemies list at the DOJ. Well, Abby just read off an enemies list that Donald Trump quite literally sent out. Has any Democrat, did Joe Biden do that? Is there any example of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, or any of them having an enemies list?
Letitia James and Alvin Bragg, people literally ran on putting Donald Trump in jail. I think we can all agree that there was politicization.
So, but in answer to his question, which is important, is there an example that you all can cite of the president directing the investigation or the prosecution
did not tweet on his behalf
anyone?
No, they didn't put it out there in public.
All right, well, good. I'm glad that we're in agreement on that.
There's agreement on that. The president is more public about this, and I don't think that is a smart move from
It's not that he's more public about it. It's that he is doing it when there is zero evidence that it was done by the people that he claims did it to him. You guys are attributing investigations in Georgia and investigations in New York to Joe Biden with no proof. That doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, it does not make sense.
Yeah, this is the second cabinet figure in a few weeks who's been fired. I think most Republicans would look at that, though, and say, look, Trump is eager to find somebody who is competent. And when you look at the things that a lot of Republicans are eager for the attorney general to do, I don't think the lawfare is, and I think as Jason mentioned, a lot of it's going after Antifa. That's a big part of it. A lot of it's going after some of the foreign money that's funding Code Pink and some of the protests.
But he wants the lawfare. I mean, is that appropriate?
Well, so no, but I wouldn't frame it that way. The same way that you guys didn't frame it when Steve Bannon was targeted.
No Democrat sent out a tweet asking to prosecute 3 specific people.
You had people who said that you wanted to throw Donald Trump
from a Democrat?
in jail, and you wanted to take him off of a ballot so he couldn't run for president. The entire state of Colorado and the Democratic Party.
Okay,
so clearly, this idea, the framing, I think your point is a valid one when it comes to
that is very
optics.
different from the president directing his attorney general in public, mind you, as he did. Pam, I've reviewed the 30 statements. What about Comey, Adam Schiff, Letitia? He publicly, right? He's doing this. It's very different from a state doing whatever they're doing, from a local, district attorney prosecuting a case. That is different. When the president says, why are you not prosecuting these people who I hate?
He believes broke laws.
Okay,
now,
but
you can disagree as to whether or not they broke any laws, and you can have a fair argument, I think, about the appropriateness of the president doing it. But I do think that the framing is important.
So you're defending it then?
I'm defending the president saying someone, in his view, broke the law, and we should be targeting that person. The same exact way Democrats said that about Donald Trump, and it wasn't framed as Donald Trump is being targeted as a political
Jason,
adversary.
you're making that sound as if it's reasonable, and it's not, okay? The president making a unilateral determination in his own mind that somebody has broken the law without providing, by the way, any proof of that, and then directing an investigation into that person is
calling for
that is not appropriate. Okay, I'm sorry. If you don't like partisan prosecutions, you should also not like that. At that first concert, Springsteen attacked Trump, called him a snowflake who can't handle the truth and is destroying the country's reputation. He also accused the White House of corruption unmatched in American history. And I guess Trump kind of just fell for it, hook, line, and sinker. Not surprising that Springsteen is getting under his skin, but the president seems to be, I don't know, really moved by this always.
I'm just so sick of it. I'm so sick of the president of the United States spending valuable time attacking random celebrities. He danced on Rob Reiner's grave. When Mueller died, he celebrated it. He's honestly morally inferior with the way he celebrates these deaths. It's just awful to see. I'm a young dude who's always looking for moral clarity from our leadership. I want to look up to our leaders and be able to learn lessons from them. What lessons do you think I learned from Donald Trump?
Don't look to D.C. for moral clarity. That's the advice I think anyone
Well,
could
Obama,
give you.
I could have looked up to Obama and actually learned patience. I could have looked up to Obama and learned gratitude. If I look at Trump, I'm just like, I don't even know what I learned from that. Bully everyone around you, isolate your allies, be an absolute asshole to anyone who interacts with you. What's the lesson that I'm supposed to take from this guy?
If Springsteen called him thin-skinned, Trump seems to be living up to that.
The people opposing us are the same people who and think of this, who've wasted $6 trillion on wars in the Middle East. We could have rebuilt our country twice. That have produced only more terrorism, more death, more suffering. Imagine if that money had been spent right here in our home. We've totally destabilized the Middle East. And if you think about it, $6 trillion, and it was far better 15 years ago.
He was arguing that we shouldn't be spending money on regime change wars overseas, and we should spend that money on our people here at home. That was a common refrain when he was running for president. That's one of the things that differentiated him from his competitors in that.
Yes, but the context of that original statement was about wars that he did not believe were in our best interests. He's obviously making a different case.
Who defines our
this.
best interest?
Yeah. The President of the United States and the people who represent us. They're part of the whole process.
So Barack Obama defined our best interest.
They were in our best interest before.
And we can, I'm not saying it's illegitimate to
No, you
take
just
a
said they
position.
weren't in our best interests, but those were in our best interest by your own definition, because the president said they were in our best
Well,
interest.
I don't know what conversation you're listening to. A president is able to say, I believe this is in our best interest. We all get to
That's what
disagree
Bush
with
said.
that 100% of the time, if we so choose, or
For now.
wait for it, we can actually agree with it. The statement that he made yesterday, if you rewind like 20 seconds before the segment, he was talking about Minnesota. And he was talking specifically about fraud. That's literally what he was saying going into that. And if you go over a little bit more, and I'm glad we included the clip at the end where he's talking about the defense, that was the context of the statement. So they're two completely different things. Valid to disagree with either of them, but that's actually what he said.
Even with the context of the statement, it makes no sense. So
it makes plenty of sense.
So we're
He's
going to
saying
kick
that he
Medicaid back
supports
to
a
the
specific.
states.
No,
we're going to
he's
kick
saying-
Medicaid. Listen,
That's
we're
not
going
what
to
he's
kick
saying.
Medicaid back to the states, and we're going to raise taxes on a state level, but then maybe lower it on a federal level to equalize it. This makes no sense whatsoever. And how do you think this is going to play for the American people come the midterms? We're saying we're going to have to sacrifice Medicaid,
I think
sacrifice
taking him out of
Medicare.
context is a really smart strategy
Dude,
in that ad.
Is he out
I
of context
don't disagree with that.
24/7? Because everything he says goes
No, that
against
was
his own
completely
best
out of
interest.
context,
It was
and you're
not.
taking him out of context.
Are you okay
intentionally.
with throwing Medicaid back to the states?
I'm okay with states taking way more of a role in all of this. That is a key piece of what conservatives
Are you
believe
okay with
is that
cutting-
we don't want
cutting
a large
daycare?
federal government. And we're not cutting daycare.
Are you okay with cutting Medicaid in order to
I'm
fund
okay
the military?
with cutting out the fraud, waste, and abuse, which
That's
is
not-
precisely
that
what
is
he
not
was
what he
talking
said.
about. Go
So-
listen to
so
the
out
speech.
of
How many
protocol-
people?
Listen to
How
the
many
speech.
people have been arrested?
Did you listen to the full speech?
How many people have been arrested
Did you
due to Nick
listen to
Shirley?
the full speech?
Yes, I did. It was a lunch.
And so
Easter
you're
lunch, yes.
arguing. You listened to the full speech, and you're saying that he wasn't talking about Minnesota
Okay,
fraud.
how many
That's
people
what
in
you're saying
Minnesota
right
have
now?
they prosecuted due to Nick Shirley's video? How many people have they prosecuted due to Nick Shirley?
I don't know.
Zero. If this
The
Nick
video
Shirley
that just
video
came out not long ago. Yes,
in
I'm sure
November,
that-
zero
You know,
prosecutions,
so
zero
there's no
indictments.
fraud. We're back to there's no
right.
fraud in Minnesota.
I mean,
Fraud.
why?
Okay. All right, look, I think part of the issue is that this war isn't just about what's happening right now. Presumptively, our desire to degrade Iran is about preventing them from doing things in the future. So it's sort of like the nukes and the nuclear material. It's under rubble now, but if we don't get it out, it's still there.
But we know where the rubble is, and I think that's part of the 2 to 3 weeks. The other piece about this story that I think is actually really important is that the president and Marco Rubio and everybody else, they made the case as to why they needed to go to war. And this actually backs up that story. This idea that they didn't pose a real threat, that there wasn't anything sort of imminent, this actually cuts right to that and shows it was in fact imminent. It was a real threat. And this is what they were talking about. And now we're getting some more of that intel. The reason why it didn't come out early on was obvious. You don't just throw out all of your intel right at the beginning when you're starting this kind of military war.
I think this directly contradicts almost everything the administration has said over the past few weeks. It absolutely has. Donald Trump has declared total victory multiple times. He has declared victory, right? Can you say yes or no? Wait, has Donald Trump declared victory? Has he said we won a week ago? Okay,
He's
you're
saying
not
that
answering.
we're winning this.
No, he said
Yes,
that we won this
absolutely.
war. The reality is every
From the
every weapon system that was actually a threat to us is still intact. We just proved that.
But that's not true. No,
that is
that is
absolutely
100%
true.
not
Why
true.
are the ballistic missiles still firing? Why is the Strait of Hormuz closed? Why can't we get a single ship through it? Because all of the weapon
you're
systems
saying
that are
that
still a threat are still intact. They still have the enriched uranium. We haven't removed that. They have the IRGC Navy still intact just because we destroyed a 55-year-old
literally
Navy.
Everything you just said is not true.
Wait, if the IRGC Navy is not intact, then why is the Strait of Hormuz closed?
You're conflating two separate things.
What?
Weakening the infrastructure and their capabilities versus completely eradicating it. They have not. No one has said that they completely eradicated every single missile that's coming from Iran. That's obviously no.
Did he say we won? Of course.
I don't know about you guys. I'm not surprised that the Iranians still have capabilities because these are very, it's a strategic country. They have been at this for a long time. They've expected the United States to attack them for a long time. Why wouldn't they have redundancies? Why wouldn't they have things stored away? The question for me is, if you're the president of the United States and you're going to go to war against a country like Iran, why aren't you building a coalition to go in there and to deal with some of this stuff that you think may be happening? Why aren't you